He started this by saying it's a bioweapon. This is an insane person. This is a conspiracy theorist. And he's lying in front of Congress. And Republicans are fuming that they're asking him questions and that they're pressing him. They're calling us the fake news media. They're saying that we're lying. We just played it in context. You guys never play anything in context. Here's the context. All right, let's talk about RFK. The man of the hour, he did not have a good morning. He had a bad day yesterday, too. Because yesterday, his cousin, Caroline Kennedy, who has served as ambassador to France, maybe? I can't remember. There's one nephew of RFK. I forget his name, but he goes around. He's constantly saying, "Where's my family? Why is the family not speaking out about this? How come they're all staying quiet?" Well, Caroline Kennedy finally decided she wasn't going to be quiet anymore.
Dear Senators, throughout the past year, people have asked for my thoughts about my cousin Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his presidential campaign. I did not comment, not only because I was serving in a government position as United States Ambassador to Australia, but because I have never wanted to speak publicly about my family members and their challenges.
Ambassador to Australia, thank you.
We are a close generation of 28 cousins who have been through a lot together. We know how hard it's been, and we are always there for each other. But now that Bobby has been nominated by President Trump to be Secretary of Health and Human Services, a position that would put him in charge of the health of the American people, I feel an obligation to speak out. Overseeing the FDA, the NIH, the CDC, and Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, agencies that are charged with protecting the most vulnerable among us, is an enormous responsibility and one that Bobby is unqualified to fill.
So that's her son that keeps asking the family to speak out. Okay, thank you.
He lacks any relevant government, financial, management, or medical experience. His views on vaccines are dangerous and willfully misinformed. These facts alone should be disqualifying. But he has personal qualities related to this job, which for me pose even greater concern. I've known Bobby my whole life. We grew up together. It's no surprise that he keeps birds of prey as pets, because Bobby himself is a predator.
That's vicious. Honestly, I don't like RFK, and I don't mind some low blows, but that was vicious. She's not holding back there.
He's always been charismatic, able to attract others through the strength of his personality, his willingness to take risks, and break the rules. I watch his younger brothers and cousins follow him down the path of drug addiction. His basement, his garage, his dorm room were always the center of the action, where drugs were available, and he enjoyed showing off how he put baby chickens and mice in a blender to feed to his hawks. It was often a perverse scene of despair and violence. That was a long time ago, and people can change. Through his own strength and the many second chances he was given by people who felt sorry for the boy who lost his father, Bobby was able to pull himself out of illness and disease. I admire the discipline that took and the continuing commitment it requires. But siblings and cousins who Bobby encouraged down the path of substance abuse suffered addiction, illness, and death, while Bobby has gone on to misrepresent, lie, and cheat his way through life. Today, while he may encourage a younger generation to attend AA meetings, Bobby is addicted to attention and power. Bobby preys on the desperation of parents of sick children, vaccinating his own kids while building a following hypocritically discouraging other parents from vaccinating theirs. Even before he fills this job, his constant denigration of our healthcare system and the conspiratorial half-truths he's told about vaccines, including in connection with Samoa's deadly 2019 outbreak of measles, have cost lives. And now we know that Bobby's crusade against vaccination has benefited him in other ways too. His ethics report makes clear that he will keep his financial stake in a lawsuit against an HPV vaccine. In other words, Bobby is willing to profit and enrich himself by denying access to a vaccine that can prevent almost all forms of cervical cancer and has already been safely administered to millions of boys and girls. During my time in Australia, I worked on the Quad Cancer Initiative, and I learned that cervical cancer...
You know how everybody, all the Republicans, and welcome, Bruce World, it's good to have a Republican here. Remember how they always say, like, Dr. Fauci is, like, deep state and big pharma, and he's making all this money, and then we dig into it, and Dr. Fauci didn't make any money? He made, like, $20, right? And everybody's like, oh, they lie to you because of money. Who really makes money when it comes to vaccines? It's not the people in the CDC. It's not the people at the WHO. It's not the doctors. It's the pharmaceutical companies and the anti-vaxxers. Some of these people went from I've never heard of you to instant millionaires pushing like pseudoscience and just straight lies. And that's how RFK has made millions of dollars being a anti-vaxxer. But they tell you that the only people that are doing it for money are the Dr. Fauci's of the world, who clearly didn't make any money from it.
Cancer is among the top 3 forms of cancer among women.
We'll get to Elizabeth Warren, don't worry.
Tragically, every year, more than 200,000 children lose their mothers. They are orphaned due to a lack of vaccines and screening. Those are the real-world consequences of Bobby's irresponsible beliefs. We are a close family, and none of that is easy to say. It also wasn't easy to remain silent last year when Bobby expropriated my father's image and distorted President Kennedy's legacy to advance his own failed presidential campaign, and then groveled to Donald Trump for a job. Bobby continues to grandstand off my father's assassination and that of his own father. It's incomprehensible to me that someone
RFK's dad was not like this,
who is willing to exploit their own painful family tragedies for publicity would be put in charge of America's life and death situations. Unlike Bobby, I try not to speak for my father, but I am certain that he and my Uncle Bobby, who gave their lives in public service to our country, and my Uncle Teddy, who devoted his long Senate career to the cause of improving health care, would be disgusted. The American healthcare system, for all its flaws, is the envy of the world. Its doctors and nurses, researchers, scientists, and caregivers are the most dedicated people I know. Every day they give their lives to heal and save others. They deserve a knowledgeable leader who is committed to evidence and excellence. They deserve a secretary committed to advancing cutting-edge medicine to save lives, not to rejecting the advances we have already made. They deserve a stable, moral, and ethical person at the helm of this crucial agency. They deserve better than Bobby Kennedy, and so do the rest of us. I urge the Senate to reject his nomination. Sincerely, Carolyn Kennedy.
One thing that all of these, all the right-wingers have is fear of the unknown, fear that somebody's going to attack you. I think I tweeted yesterday something along the lines of when I was watching that Mark Wayne Mullen talk about how like we need an Iron Dome. Some people, most of us as kids were afraid of the monster around every corner, and most of us grew out of it that are here, and the ones that didn't grow out of that just became Republicans. Like, instead of monsters, they just turned it into more real world things that also aren't a threat to them. But that's what republicanism is. It's just being afraid of everything, just absolutely fucking everything. And when you're a person who's led by fear, it is incredibly easy to manipulate you. It is incredibly easy to get you to go along with things that aren't for your benefit. And they play on your patriotism and your fear and say like, oh, like I'm looking out for my country. You're not. You're looking out for these guys. You're looking out for people like RFK who want to continue to grift, which is exactly what he has been doing for years, and it's what he will continue to do even when he's in office. just before I get to his testimony, I just wanted to show a couple things that will be important to remember. This is from Neil Stone. This is the chart of measles in the United States. On the left here, before that dividing line, you will see the amount of cases. In some instances, going up and up to over 4,000. You will see every state had issues with it. Some had issues later. The vaccine is introduced here, and measles went away. It just went like you went from this to this. That's what the measles vaccine that RFK has spent years saying, like, I regret giving my kids the measles vaccine, he says. I regret it. This is what happened to the measles when we were vaccinated. You'll see similar to that on every vaccination. You'll see similar to this, not as strong, but you'll see this with COVID as well. The difference mostly between the measles vaccine and the COVID vaccine is that the internet wasn't around, so there were like less idiots. There were less people who like relied on what they saw on a website than believing their doctors. Like, people believed in the science, and the science was clear and it worked. And sure, there's side effects to literally everything. You can have side effects from drinking too much water. New York Post, I won't read this because we've gone long, but just to show you guys, like, New York Post is far from a left wing. Actually, I'll show you this clip. Far from a left wing organization, it is very right wing. It is essentially a right wing a tabloid. Here's what they had to say.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. still a radical left lunatic who is anti-energy, a big-time taxer, and completely incoherent about our nation's health. No Republican can vote for this guy. No senator should. The president and his team insist that RFK Jr. has been fitted with a policy straitjacket, that certain areas, such as vaccines and objecting to energy strategy, are off limits. But in truth, the only straitjacket suitable for RFK Jr. is a real one. The Wall Street Journal editorial board, which argues that RFK Jr. is dangerous to public health. In the past, he has claimed that the measles vaccine causes autism, despite reams of studies that have found no causative link, and that the polio vaccine might have killed many more than the actual virus. Deadly infectious diseases disappeared because of better hygiene, not vaccines. That's what he asserts.
Yeah.
Robert F.
I like that they call him a left-wing lunatic for like just the most benign reasons. The stuff they call him a lunatic for is crazy. I agree, but even the right-wingers don't like this guy. Nobody does, and the only reason that anybody really cares who he is because he bent the knee for Trump. That's why you guys like him. Can we just be honest about that? Can we be real honest about that? So, a few of you liked him before, and then most of you only like him because he came in and he bent the knee. But I want to show his confirmation hearing, and I want to start with Elizabeth Warren tearing him to shreds. Now, I want to show you. This is from Benny Johnson. This is what Benny Johnson says about this. Remember, Russian asset, Russian paid. Benny Johnson calls this a humiliating psychotic breakdown by Elizabeth Warren, doing everything she can to protect her big corporate pharma donors. RFK ends her in 7-second masterclass. You watch this and tell me if this is a 7-second masterclass by RFK.
I'm asking.
Also, the name of RFK's, I have it on good authority that is also the name of RFK's sex tape, 7-second masterclass.
Asking about fees from suing drug companies. Will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies,
no,
and I'm not going to agree to that.
Let's try it again.
I'm asking about fees from suing drug companies.
Are you going to collect fees personally for suing drug companies? Talking specifically about that, and I'm going to stop these a lot because RFK and all Republicans that are on the stand are all fucking liars. And they all do this. It's such a good strategy by the Republicans because they don't actually have answers. So it's just pretend that the question was something else. She asks if he's going to take fees for these lawsuits. And he says,
will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies, and I'm not going to agree to that.
Drug companies as much as you want.
I'm not going to agree to not sue drug companies or anybody.
So let's do a quick count here.
Yeah, she didn't ask him to do that. She asked him if he would not profit from it.
of how, as Secretary of HHS, if you get confirmed, you could influence every one of those lawsuits. Well, let me start the list. You could publish your anti-vaccine conspiracies, but this time on U.S. government letterhead, something a jury might be impressed by. You could appoint people
I don't
to the
understand
CDC vaccine panel.
It's just, I didn't get that. Yeah, she's saying that your position holds weight. And so now when you put out anti-vax material, it comes with the letterhead of the United States government. And it used to be that people cared about what the United States government said when it came to things like vaccines. But now we've got a fucking kook that they're trying to put in there.
Who share your anti-vax views and let them do your dirty work. You could tell the CDC vaccine panel to remove a particular vaccine from the vaccine schedule. You could remove vaccines from special compensation programs, which would open up manufacturers to mass torts. You could make more injuries eligible for compensation, even if there is no causal evidence. You could change vaccine court processes to make it easier to bring junk lawsuits. You could turn over FDA data to your friends at the law firm, and they could use it however it benefited them. You could change vaccine labeling. You could change vaccine information rules. You could change which claims are compensated in the vaccine injury compensation program.
Bro, can we turn off the mic so we don't have to hear your boogers hitting the tissue for like 1 second?
There's a lot of ways that you can influence those future lawsuits and pending lawsuits while you are Secretary of HHS. And I'm asking you to commit right now that you will not take a financial stake in every one of those lawsuits so that what you do as Secretary will also benefit you financially down the line.
So we're clear. Again, she's saying, do what you're going to do. I'm just asking you not to profit from your position. Don't take a financial stake. That's an easy answer. Everybody should be able to say yes to that. Everybody. Do you guys care about people just using and abusing the government? The thing that's frustrating is that your principles only apply for people you don't like. And again, that's why it's so easy to lie to you. Because they'll say right in front of your face, I'm doing this shit for money. And you're like, I don't care. It matches what I already believed, so you can make the money.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You have said
you're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
So is he dumb? Is he dumb or dishonest? Because she's now explained it 4 times. That she went into great detail to explain the fucking question. An old Booger Bob. Oh, Booger Bobby. Oh, Booger Bobby here. It's like, you're still telling me not to sue. She's explained it 4 times. So is he dumb? Or is he refusing to ask the question? To the couple of Republicans in the chat, put 1 if he's dumb or 2 if he's dishonest. I'd like to see my Republicans. Thank you.
Look, no one should be fooled here. As Secretary of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country. And for all of his talk about follow the science and his promise that he won't interfere with those of us who want to vaccinate his kids, the bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
Senator, I support vaccines. I support the childhood schedule. I will do that. The only thing I want is good science, and that's it.
Well, I believe him when he says the only thing I want is good science. I believe him. Unfortunately, he can't recognize good science. He doesn't seem to have the ability to recognize when he's literally in like the fringe, like 1% of people who believes what he believes. And again, not credentialed, not a scientist, not a doctor, not a virologist. He knows about as much as I know. And you should not come to me for advice. If you come to me for advice, I'm going to say you should go look up the data, and whatever the data suggests, that's probably what you ought to do. Talk to your doctors. Make sure you confer with a physician. the brainworm one. Look, I don't even think it's the brainworm, to be honest. Like, he's making money. And the thing is once you have a following, and once you're making money, and once you're in a position of power, and you surround yourself with people who tell you how great and smart you are, and you go on Rogan, and you go on Jordan Peterson, and you go on Lex Friedman, and you go on all these podcasts, and everybody just tells you how fucking brave and brilliant you are, you lose touch with reality. And the reality is that this person is fucking insane. That's an insane person right there. That's not a person that should be put in a position of power at all. But even if it wasn't an insane person, maybe just maybe we put somebody who has some background that would be useful for HHS secretary. Just like some. That'd be cool. Here's Senator Wyden, Ron Wyden. I can't remember what state he's from. I'm going to guess someplace with not a lot of sun. I'm going to guess Senator Wyden is from Massachusetts. Let me know if I got that right. RFK is going to be sweating here too with Wyden.
Conflicting stories about vaccines. You say one thing and then you say another. In your testimony today under oath, you denied that you were anti-vaccine.
Just one more thing. I'm sorry. Just listen carefully. Listen to him like grumbling into the microphone.
Stories about vaccines. You say one thing and then you say another. In your testimony today under oath, you denied that you were anti-vaccine. But during a podcast interview in July of 2023, you said, quote, "No vaccine is safe and effective." In your testimony today, in order to prove you're not anti-vax, you note that all your kids are vaccinated. But in a podcast in 2020, you said, and I quote, "You would do anything, pay anything to go back in time and not vaccinate your kids." Mr. Kennedy, all
Get the man
of
a
these
CPAP.
things cannot be true. So, are you lying to Congress today when you say you are pro-vaccine? Or did you lie on all those podcasts? We have all of this on tape, by the way.
Yeah, Senator, as you know, because it's been repeatedly debunked, that statement that I made on the Lex Friedman podcast was a fragment of the statement. He asked me, and anybody who actually goes and looks at that podcast and will see this, he asked me, are there vaccines that are safe and effective? And I said to him, some of the live virus vaccines are. And I said, there are no vaccines that are safe and effective, and I was going to continue for every person. Every medicine has people who are sensitive to them, including vaccines.
Right, so
He just forgot to continue. That's what it was. He just forgot to continue. The problem with RFK saying this is that he's repeated this before. So does he always forget to add that part? This is just not true. What he's saying is absolutely, unequivocally not true, and it's because of who his audience is. He can't soften it. He's got to say they're not safe. That's his audience.
Interrupted me at that point. I've corrected it many times, including on national TV. You know about this, Senator Wyden, so bringing this up right now is dishonest.
All right, let's watch it.
Vaccines that you think are good.
I think some of the live virus vaccines are probably averting more problems than they're causing. There's no vaccine that is.
Do you see what he said? Like, he didn't say they were safe. He said they're probably averting more problems than they. Let's get the exact words.
Averting more problems than they're causing.
Averting more problems than they're causing. So yeah, like it might be like 40. And again, probably. See how definitive he said he was? And by the way, did he get cut off or did he just explain it? Sounds like he just gave his answer right there. Doesn't sound like he was cut off. He does get cut off in a second, but there's his answer.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
Those are big words. What about the polio?
By the way, there's no vaccines that's safe and effective, and he said, in fact. Would you start? There's no vaccine that's safe and effective. In fact, what I really meant was to say it's not safe and effective for everybody. I don't think that's what he was going to say. I think he's lying right there.
What about the
Those are big
polio?
words.
Can we talk about the?
Well, here's the problem.
Yes.
Here's the problem. The polio vaccine contained a virus called simian virus 40, SV40. It's one of the most carcinogenic materials that is known to man. In fact, it's used now by scientists around the world to induce tumors in rats and guinea pigs in labs.
By the way, that's this is where, like, I'm pretty sure this is where Alex Jones got the, like, turning the frogs gay thing. I'm pretty sure.
But it was in that vaccine. 98 million people who got that vaccine in my generation got it. And now you've had this explosion of soft tissue cancers in our generation that kill many, 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 many more people than polio ever did.
So what he's saying in this at Capitol Hill is, I was just about to clarify before I was interrupted. He didn't clarify. He had already clarified earlier in the Senate that he thought, yeah, probably the live virus ones, probably there's more benefits than side effects. We don't know, but probably. And then he goes on to say that the reason that we have soft tissue cancers is because of the polio vaccine. He asked us to play the clip. We played the clip. It doesn't say what RFK just said there. Let's go back and hear what he says.
He interrupted me at that point. I've corrected it many times, including on national TV. You know about this, Senator Wyden. So bringing this up right now is dishonest.
Let's be clear.
It's because we think you're lying on national TV. Because every time you go on national TV, you say something different than you say on Lex Friedman's podcast and with Jordan Peterson. You always have, I'm out of context. Let me add the context that I always forget to add every fucking time I'm on somebody else's podcast. I just always forget to add context until I'm on national TV being pressed on it. And he learned this trick. This trick works really well on MAGA. What you do is you say something insane, and MAGA, here's a perfect example. You had the claim that ICE had come and raided the elementary school, right? Everybody thought it was true for like a couple hours. And everybody on the right wing that is politically active, especially if they're on Twitter, every fucking one of them came out and they're like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, if your kids are illegal, we're going to get them out of elementary schools. We'll go wherever the fuck we want. And then like a few hours later, they clarified it wasn't ICE, it was Secret Service. And then the Republicans like, yeah, see how you guys lie about everything? You never wait for the truth to come out? Like, you guys were defending it. Like, you also fell for it and you defended it. And then once it wasn't true, you're like, see, that's not what we really meant. Well, then why'd you all defend it? That's what he does. That's the trick you can play on MAGA. It's so easy to fuck with these people. It is so easy to get them to forget what they just saw, what they just heard, and what they just said. They're out there defending it. And then they're like, yeah, that's not what we mean. See, you guys are fake news. All right. You guys fell for the same fake news. You defended it.
About what you've actually done then, since you want to deny your statements. For example, you have a history of trying to take vaccines away from people. In May of 2021, you petitioned the Food and Drug Administration to not only block Americans from having access to the COVID vaccine, but to prevent any future access to the life-saving vaccine. Are you denying that? Your name is on the petition.
We brought that petition after CDC recommended the COVID vaccine without any scientific basis for 6-year-old children. Most experts agree.
Yeah, that's a lie. Without any scientific explanation, without any. They tested it. There wasn't a lot of data, because you don't get data until somebody takes the vaccine. But like, do you see how, like, what he does in the way that he positions these lies? And that forces you to do what Trump forces you to do. It forces you to take a position. What is the position here? Is the position, like Mr. Wyden said, that he was just anti-vax for the hell of it? Or was the position, like RFK said, that there was no evidence and that's why he opposed it? Well, RFK certainly didn't happen. Or he doesn't know what evidence is, or he doesn't know what data is, or he can't read. I don't know what it is. but he's putting his name on papers and now he's defending it, and he makes those types of claims. That's why we don't want him as HHS secretary. This is a person who will lie right to your fucking face, right to your. Everybody in the room knows that that's not true. Everybody in this room knows that it's not true. Nothing got approved vaccination-wise from the the FDA and the CDC greenlit it. None of this happened without scientific data. It all had scientific data.
Read today, even the people who did it back then, COVID vaccines are inappropriate for 6-year-old children who basically have a zero risk from COVID. That's why I brought that lawsuit. I don't want to. I want to emphasize
Mr. Kennedy, the facts.
Again, the data doesn't align there for him either. You're still safe. A 6-year-old is still safer being vaccinated than not vaccinated. It is, however, true that younger people generally have a better immune systems when it comes to COVID. Like, they did have better outcomes. That's true. He's right that like that age group is the one that is least likely to lose their life. But that doesn't include things like long COVID, long haulers, like stuff that people can have for years afterwards. It didn't hospitalize them. They didn't lose their life. But now they have troubles for years. It can affect their lungs. Their lungs might not fully develop. Oh, this was the lady.
Kennedy, the facts. The facts.
That's someone saying that he lied and children are suffering.
And to the audience.
And it's a good move. You say that you're doing it for, I care about the children. If you cared about the children, you would present the data accurately, and you would present the data that children are still better off being vaccinated according to the data. And I think like that's the fucking difficult thing in dealing with you MAGA people, is that you have people who don't live in reality, and you're asking us just to look the other way. Just look the other way. That's what we do. We just pretend. We just pretend everything's cool here. You have a non-scientist, non-expert who's never worked in any sort of role even similar to this. And you're saying, let's put them in charge of HHS. Literally just said that the polio vaccine is what caused the uptick in soft tissue cancer. There's no evidence to back that up. He just said it right in front of everybody. And you guys are like, yeah, this is our guy. Why do you want a dumb guy? It's because he says what you say. But you're also a dumb guy. You're also not an expert. So if somebody's just repeating what you say and you're not an expert, don't listen to him. It's not a great idea. Senator Hassan here. I also don't know where she's from. Continues the evisceration.
Confused. You have clearly stated in the past that
one of the things that is critical to Republicans, and I think that this message is a good one to, if you guys are like aggregators, if you're people that are putting out content, this is a great clip because it has cross appeal. It appeals to Republicans and for different reasons, but it appeals to Republicans who want all children to be forced birth. And it appeals to Democrats who can point to this and say, see, RFK's a phony. He's an absolute phony, and this is why we didn't like him.
Kennedy, I'm confused. You have clearly stated in the past that bodily autonomy is one of your core values. The question is, do you stand for that value or not? When was it that you decided to sell out the values you've had your whole life in order to be given power by President Trump?
Senator, I agree with President Trump that every abortion is a tragedy, that we can't be a moral authority in this country.
Right, but that isn't what you said back in New Hampshire in 2023. My question is exactly when did you decide to...
Yeah, well, what happened is Trump told me to agree with him, so now I do. That's what he just said. Here's a direct quote from you saying that you believe this decision should be left up to women. What do you say about that? I agree with Dad. Dad said that I'm not supposed to have my own opinions. I'm with Dad now.
To sell out your life's work and values to get this position?
Senator, I agree with President Trump that every abortion is a tragedy.
So what you're telling us, just to be clear, because my time is limited, is that regardless of what you believe, regardless of what values you have, if President Trump tells you to do something, you're going to do it. You said just now the discussion about mifepristone. Oh, he's asked me to study the safety of it. Here are the safety studies that tell us mifepristone is safe and effective. And I ask, Mr. Chair, that these 40 about 40 studies be admitted to the record by
Yeah, but wait, hold on. I hate to push back on Ms. Hassan here. Were those studies conducted by a fucking idiot? Because if they weren't, great news. We've got a new person to study. Okay, he's going to do the studying. Those were probably all studies done by doctors and scientists. We want one done by a fucking idiot.
unanimous consent.
Without objection.
So the studies are there. The safety is proved. The science is there. But what you're telling us is if President Trump orders you to take action to make it harder for women to get direly needed health care, you'll follow his order. If Mr. Trump, as he did yesterday, orders a halt on Medicaid payments that are essential for taking care of people with disabilities all around this country, you're going to follow that order because you are willing to sacrifice your values, your knowledge, if President Trump tells you to do that. That, to me, is unacceptable in a Secretary of Health and Human Services.
And the RFK goes, cock-a-doodle-doo. Imagine being cucked to an 80-year-old orange dude. Imagine that like your biggest fear in life is that orange daddy will disagree with you. That's gotta be a tough existence. No wonder he's not happy. I do feel for his wife. I think she should go back to Larry David. This is great. This is I forget his name. Is it Michael Bennett from Colorado? Fucking Colorado is killing it. By the way, they have the best news anchor and some of the best people in Congress, and also the worst. They also have Lauren Boebert.
Was a genetically engineered bioweapon that targets black and white people. Did you say that COVID-19 was a genetically engineered bioweapon that targets black and white people, but spared Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese people?
I didn't say it was deliberately targeted. I just
hinted at it. All right, let's see the actual clip. You tell me what the context is here, because he's demanding that we have context, and he knows that they can't pull this up. So we're going to play the context that he's demanding. And we're fair over here.
We need to talk about bioweapons. The level I know a lot.
We need to talk about bioweapons. Bioweapons are weapons that are made for biological warfare. However you might do them. He's accused a lot of things of being bioweapons, but he brings this up, says we need to talk about bioweapons. That's the topic we're talking about here, okay? We're talking about bioweapons.
Now about bioweapons because I've been doing a book on it for the past 2.5 years, and you know the technology that we now have to develop these microbes, we've put hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically targeted microbes. The Chinese have done.
It's hard to hear him. So he says we've put hundreds of millions of dollars into ethnically what did he say?
Microbes.
Ethnically targeted microbes. Okay. So the topic is bioweapons. He says we've spent money on ethnically targeted biomes. So that sounds so far like he's about to tell us about a bioweapon.
The Chinese have done the same thing. In fact, COVID-19.
And China's doing the same thing.
There's an argument that it is ethnically targeted. COVID-19 attacks certain races disproportionately. The races that are most immune to COVID-19 are because of the structure of the genetic structure, genetic differentials among different races. Of the receptors, of the ACE2 receptor, COVID-19 is targeted to attack Caucasians.
He just said COVID-19 is targeted. Targeted. That's purposeful. Not that it just happens to affect people more. He said COVID-19 is targeted.
And black people. The people who are most immune are Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese.
It's targeted. Goes after black people. And who are the people? Who are the two boogeymen that the United States that Republicans always talk about? Who do the fascists hate? The communists, which is what they call the Chinese, CCP, and the Jews. This is why we call it fascism. Who was Hitler fighting? The communists, and specifically the Ashkenazi Jews, who were seen by him and many racists as like the worldly Jews, not the religious Jews, but the worldly Jews. It's the same fucking argument. He started this by saying it's a bioweapon. This is an insane person. This is a conspiracy theorist, and he's lying in front of Congress, and Republicans are fuming that they're asking him questions and that they're pressing him. They're calling us the fake news media. They're saying that we're lying. We just played it in context. You guys never play anything in context. Here's the fucking context.
But we don't know whether it was deliberately targeted that or not, but there are papers out there that show the racial and ethnic.
Okay, so there's this. We don't know if it's deliberately targeted, but the papers are saying that
differential and impact to that. We do know that the Chinese are spending hundreds of millions of dollars developing ethnic bioweapons, and we are developing ethnic bioweapons. That's what all of those labs in the Ukraine are about. They're collecting Russian DNA. They're collecting Chinese DNA so that we can target.
If I told you not to go around the corner, and I told you not to go around the corner because there was a monster around the corner, and that monster specifically, let's say I'm talking to Tex, and that monster goes after white dudes who look like Tex, right? But I'm like, I'm not going to be able to. I'm not saying for sure. I'm just saying that every white dude who's gone around the corner has disappeared. Okay, and I know that our government has been making monsters that target white dudes. You know who else is doing it? The Chinese government. They're also doing it. And so I'm not saying for sure that there's a monster around the corner that's eating white dudes, but everybody's doing it. Everybody's making those monsters, and it just seems to only be affecting white dudes. So it's pretty fucking dishonest when he says like, "Oh, I'm taking out of context here." That was in context.
I didn't say it was deliberately targeted. I just quoted an NIH-funded and NIH published study.
Did you say?
Did he? I didn't hear him cite a source.
Say that it targets black and white people, but spared Ashkenazi Jews.
I quoted a study, Your Honor. I quoted an NIH study that showed that.
I'll take that as.
Didn't do that either.
Yes, I have to move on, Mr. I have to move on. Did you say that Lyme disease is highly likely a materially engineered bioweapon? I made sure I put in the highly likely. Did you say Lyme disease is a highly likely militarily engineered bioweapon?
I probably did say that.
Did you say that?
He did. I checked.
Okay, I want all of our colleagues to hear it, Mr. Kennedy. I want them to hear it. You said yes. Did you say that exposure depends?
Oh, he said that's what the developer of Lyme disease said. It's not. So the person who did the research on Lyme disease, who also was researching bioweapons, basically said it could be used as a bioweapon. That's all he said. He said, realistically, you could use ticks and Lyme disease and use it as a bioweapon. He didn't say it is. He said you could use it. You could do this.
Pesticides causes children to become transgender.
No, I never said that.
Okay, I have the record that I'll give to the chairman, and he can make his judgment about what you said.
All right, well, we've got that one too. Did he say the chemicals in the water are causing kids to turn transgender? Here's the clip, and he's sorry that you have to hear the two worst voices in one clip, but we got Jordan Peterson here and RFK Jr. And remember, he said, did you say that the chemicals in water are causing kids to turn transgender?
I've seen the climate apocalypse use fear to induce something approximating the same kind of level of tyranny, as far as I'm concerned, that characterized the vaccine lockdown. Help me sort that out and understand where you stand.
I see these huge levels of depression. And
by the way, what vaccine lockdown? Why are they still saying both of these people are smart enough to know there wasn't a vaccine lockdown or a COVID lockdown. There were like some local governments that did it, but this big global conspiracy, there was no federal lockdown.
despair, loneliness in kids. And I don't think that there's a single cause to it. And I think blaming it on, depression about climate is probably oversimplistic. And in fact, I think a lot of the problems we see in kids, and particularly boys, it's probably underappreciated that how much of that is coming from chemical exposures.
And of course, by underappreciated, he means there's no fucking data. Right? Like the thing is with the data is it's not really saying what I'm saying. And so it's underappreciated.
Including a lot of the sexual dysphoria that we're seeing. They're swimming through a soup of toxic chemicals today, and many of those are endocrine disruptors. There's atrazine throughout our water supply. Atrazine, by the way, if you in a lab put atrazine in a tank full of frogs, it will chemically castrate and forcibly feminize every frog in there.
All right. I don't know who's going to tell him that we're not amphibians, first of all. Second of all, he said we're swimming in a sea of... Bitch, we don't swim. We're on land almost always. We swim sometimes for fun. Frogs live in water. And if we lived in a tank, a small tank that was full of chemicals, it would probably fuck us up. But we don't. So you saying that putting frogs together in a tank full of water that has chemicals in atrazine and saying, well, if it chemically castrates frogs, then it must turn children trans. You'd have to put children in a tank full of water. Even to make this compare, and even then, one's an amphibian, one's not. Their skin does different things. It absorbs different things. It repels different things. It's like you're comparing two different species in two entirely different conditions, and not a single bit of pushback from Jordan Peterson. Just like, yeah, fuck yeah, that sounds right to me.
And 10% of the frogs, the male frogs, will turn into fully viable females able to produce viable eggs. If it's doing that to frogs, there's a lot of other evidence that it's doing it to human beings.
Sounds an awful lot like he's saying that like material conditions can change gender. And the gender, it sounds like he's saying gender in frogs is a spectrum. And that material conditions, and he even brought up societal conditions earlier, that it's not just the societal conditions, but it can also be the conditions into which they are born. Sounds an awful lot like the anti-trans stuff. Like it seems like it proved that that it's a bit of a spectrum here. That it can be the material conditions could change it.
As well.
Yeah. I can't lie. I disagree with what RFK is yapping about here. Fucking finally. Thank you, Bruce. Round of applause for Bruce. It's crazy that like it would be nice if we could get you on board with some of the other crazy shit people say, but yeah, that's insane. Everything he said so far is insane. That's not more insane than the other things he said so far.
I went there, nothing to do with that.
Oh, so now we're talking about Samoa, just so you know. And RFK is going to lie again about something that he never said or never did, or that nobody ever said.
I went there, nothing to do with vaccines. I went there to introduce a medical informatics system.
He was invited by a prominent anti-vaxxer who was a fan of his, and she was hosting an event. And it's true, it was not an anti-vax event when he went to Samoa in 2019.
I would digitalize records in Samoa and make health delivery much more efficient. I never gave any public statement about vaccines. You cannot find a single Samoan who will say, I didn't get a vaccine because of Bobby Kennedy. I went in June.
Would you be surprised to know that that's not true? This is just absolutely untrue. This is an article from The Guardian called We Learned the Hard Way. Actually, I'll just summarize it. I don't need to read it. Essentially, what they said is that a lot of people were big fans of RFK, and anti-vax sentiment was already flooding Samoa before RFK got there, but it was due to a lot of the research and a lot of the stuff that he was putting out. And so you had a lot of vaccine hesitancy for polio, and the rate dropped down to about 38% of people being vaccinated. Now, it's true that it wasn't like he went there and there was this measles outbreak. I think I might have said polio. I meant measles. That's true. But they were inspired by his work. That's why he got invited there in the first place, is because there was so many people on that island that thought he was a genius that when he said don't be vaccinated, they didn't, and then people died. Something, I think 83 children died. Perfectly preventable, easily preventable. They died. And RFK's up here just saying, like, that's not my fault. It's not my fault here.
I went in June of 2019. The measles outbreak started in August. Oh, clearly I had nothing to do with the measles. Not only that,
Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah. Clearly he did, though, because the people that invited him there and the people of Samoa have said, yeah, this was the guy. So, like, again, this is not somebody we should trust with the health of other people. He makes horrific decisions. He can't process data in a way that makes any sense. It's not a person that I mean, frankly, I don't know why any MAGA is not calling their senator right now and be like, no, not this guy. And the reason that none of you are is because you worship Donald Trump. And if you guys criticize the people that he puts up, you know that you'll get backlash from the rest of the cult. We know that. If you're a Republican, you go online right now and you start trashing RFK, the rest of the cult's going to be furious with you. We trust Donald Trump. We trust him. If he picked him, that's what we voted for. He has to be HHS secretary. Last thing on RFK, and then we'll move on. And this is the part that I think is, I mean, just equally as terrifying. It was kind of mentioned once before, but this is James Langford asking RFK about mifepristone.
Events are, we need to understand the safety of every drug, mifepristone and every other drug. And President Trump has made it clear to me that one of the things he is not taking a position yet on mifepristone, a detailed position, but he's made it clear to me that he wants me to look at safety issues. And I'll ask NIH and FDA to do that.
But he can't identify it. Like, Trump can ask him to look at it all he wants. He can't identify it. And his track record says he's going to come to the wrong conclusion. There's multiple lawsuits already in place that basically say mifepristone has side effects and therefore the FDA should not approve it. They want to ban mifepristone because they want to force people to give birth. That's the bottom line and maybe Trump doesn't, but that's what the people from Heritage want. That's what Project 2025 wants. And if I'm Trump and I'm saying, look, all right, Project 2025, all right, Heritage Foundation, I hear what you're saying, but I don't know if I believe you. So I'm going to have somebody fact check you. The last person on my list would be fucking RFK. That's the last person I would choose to do a fact check. He can't figure it out. Every time he fact checks something, he comes to the wrong conclusion. He goes with the minority data. And the reason he does that is because people like different. People like people don't trust the government. They hate the government. They hate doctors. They hate any organization now. We've gotten to a point where people so mistrust everybody who knows anything that the only people that Republicans trust are the ones who don't know anything about it. That's why you put people in government that can barely fucking read. That's why you have Marjorie Taylor Greene chairing a committee. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who rose to prominence chasing around a kid who was advocating for gun reform, saying that all these school shootings were fake and that Jewish people were using space lasers to start forest fires, and that there was this guy named Q who was really dropping all the secrets. And she owned a CrossFit gym. This was an idiot. And then she got elected, and then she rose to prominence, and now she chairs a committee in your party. I don't know why you guys have trust in any of these people that they'll come to the right answer. You just trust that they'll do what Trump says. You have put literally your future, your children's future, the country's future in the hands of one 80-year-old billionaire. One guy. Doesn't have a degree in any of this stuff. His understanding of science is like it's beyond basic, like it's below basic. It's mostly conspiratorial. You sold out to the dumbest people, and it's showing on this stage. And the fact that not everybody unanimously is saying no to RFK tells you like just how fucked we are. Like we're absolutely being mocked everywhere, including Russia. Russia's just like, I can't believe it. They're just putting all our people in. This is crazy. We've been trying to do this forever.